See, George Floyd is the Democratic Party's prototypical black man. These are the black men they are trying to create. So George Floyd has to be elevated. He has to be celebrated. He's perfect to them. He was poor, he was uneducated, he was a drug addict, he didn't have a job, he was down there begging and crying and asking the white people to not kill him. To a Democrat, to a white Democrat, this is the perfect black man.
Hi everybody, welcome back to our channel. So Tucker Carlson did an interview with Vincent, Everett, Ellison. I think it's about George Floyd originally, because they're saying, you know, all the new stuff coming out about the whole George Floyd thing. There's a lot of new evidence coming out about how that death actually occurred. And so all that's happening right now. So they're investigating more. And then the knee on the neck thing that we all saw went viral. There's questions about that as well. So there's a lot of stuff coming up.
Did he pass some counterfeit money?
He
That's
did.
How he got.
He originally.
That's why they called the police on him, right?
Right. Originally, because he passed some counterfeit money, and and so the store owner then called the police because of this. You can't do that. People are, you're victim blaming. Like, no, we're literally stating the way that this happened and how things could be avoided. So anyways, Tucker Carlson and Vincent Everett Ellison talked about this to some capacity and kind of opened up the conversation a little bit further. So we're going to look at this video of him, and here we go.
Now that we know that it was not, in fact, a pandemic of the unvaccinated, now that we know that Ukraine is not actually winning the war against Russia, it could be time to revisit some of the other slogans we've been assured are true and ordered to repeat. Are they, in fact, true? Did, for example, a racist white cop actually murder a man called George Floyd, a civil rights leader, in Minneapolis on Memorial Day of 2020? Now, we've been told that happened, told it relentlessly for more than 3 years. So at this point, we've been told it so much that pretty much everybody seems to believe it. And because everyone does kind of believe it, a small group of people has been allowed to make massive changes to American society. They include, but are not limited to, decriminalizing stealing, defunding the police, adding a new federal holiday to the calendar called Juneteenth, the ceasing of hiring all white men in corporate America, and of course, significantly, they also sent a cop called Derek Chauvin to prison for more than 40 years. He would be the racist white devil who murdered George Floyd. But the question is, did he actually murder George Floyd? And the answer is, well, no, he didn't murder George Floyd.
You guys, let us know in the comments, do you, I don't know if you've been keeping up on this, but do you think that he actually did some harm, that he murdered George Floyd? I'm just curious to know.
Okay, so there is this, the longer video, I have not seen, but they said that George asked to be put on the ground.
Yes.
So they put him on the ground. Mm-hmm. And he was already stating he couldn't breathe before he even.
That's true.
Was
that's because he was. I think it's because he was high and he was on a drug, so he's already said he couldn't breathe, because he was in drug induced.
So what they're trying to say is Derek Chauvin didn't do anything to help him.
Right.
It was because he didn't kill him. Right. But I guess what the jury said. The jury actually said that he actually didn't do anything to keep him from dying, and that was that's what they felt the job was. Because the video doesn't show his knee on his neck. It shows it on his shoulder blade.
Yes, on his
So that was the angle that we were all seeing on TV, which is why I just don't believe anything anymore. Yeah. Anything that the news wants to show me about black people and white cops, I'm done buying into it, and and just. Then you hear, 5 seconds, a year later, you get a longer video that shows that, in fact, the guy was on drugs. In fact, he was, passing, all these sort of things.
That led up to the situation. But, so when this whole George Floyd thing first happened, I was the person who was like, total lefty. Just, throw the cop in jail. He killed him. I didn't really look at much of I looked at the little clip that went viral, and then I based my entire conclusion off of that one clip, and I never did any really further investigation. And when you investigate this thing a little further and really look at this, it's not what it appears to be. And so I was part of those people.
Yeah,
the
thing that made me, because then Dave Chappelle did the whole stand up talking about 8 minutes. Yeah. Because, and we got all emotionally involved yet again. Yeah. And then the longer video comes out where it shows that he in fact didn't have his knee. He had absolutely nothing wrong with his neck either. Mm-hmm. They did an autopsy on him, but he did have a high amount of fentanyl in his system that they said was going to kill him. Mm-hmm. My thing is mostly that we made George Floyd into a martyr. Like we made him into some kind of a god. When the man, his whole life was just a criminal.
Well, he terrorized black community.
Yeah. His whole life. And then he becomes like this black god because he died in the hands of a white cop. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like
people got emotionally, and me too, got emotionally involved, like connected to it because it's what we do, you know what I mean? You get emotionally, instead of really looking at the facts of what happened.
George Floyd. And we're not guessing about that. We know it conclusively thanks to a new court case now underway in Hennepin County, Minnesota. The case was brought by a prosecutor there called Amy Sweezy. She's suing her boss. So the case is not actually about George Floyd or Derek Chauvin, but it tells you an awful lot about both of them. In her deposition, which you should read, Amy Sweezy describes a conversation that she had with the county medical examiner, Andrew Baker, right after George Floyd died. Quote, "I called Dr. Baker early that morning to tell him about the case and to ask him if he would perform the autopsy on Mr. Floyd." Sweezy recalls all this under oath in the deposition. Quote, "He called me later in the day on that Tuesday, and he told me that there were no medical findings that showed any injury to the vital structures of Mr. Floyd's neck. There were no medical indications of asphyxia or strangulation." Oh. In other words, George Floyd, according to the official autopsy, was not murdered. He died instead of what we used to call natural causes, which in his case would include decades of drug use, as well as the fatal concentration of fentanyl that was in his system on his final day. So this was not a killing. It was yet another narcotics OD in a country that records more than 100,000 of them every year. The medical examiner clearly understood that and in fact articulated it. And Sweezy explains. "He said to me," she recalls in the deposition, "Amy, what happens when the actual evidence doesn't match up with the public narrative that everyone's already decided on?" And then he said, quote, "This is the kind of case that ends careers." In other words, everyone lied about it from the very beginning. The people who knew the truth hid the truth and allowed the revolution to proceed. Now they've been exposed. Now we know the truth. What happens next? Well, they're going to ignore it. The Biden administration just issued a long purple statement celebrating George Floyd's birthday. He's a martyr, despite the fact we know that he was not murdered. And by the way, Derek Chauvin is still languishing in jail for the rest of his life. So how do we respond to this? How do we respond to the truth once we have it? Well, Vince Everett Ellison seemed like a good man to ask. He's the author of Crime, Inc. He joins us now. Vince, thanks so much for coming on. So as with so many other stories, the origin
thanks for having me, Tucker.
Of COVID, it's a blessing to have you. We now know what actually happened, but the question then is, what do you do with that knowledge? We know that the U.S. government, Tony Fauci, worked with the Chinese to create the virus that overturned the American economy, but what do we do with that knowledge? What do we do with the knowledge that George Floyd was not actually strangled to death by a cop?
We have to acknowledge the people that gave it to us and why. See, George Floyd is the Democratic Party's prototypical black man. These are the black men they are trying to create. So George Floyd has to be elevated. He has to be celebrated. He's perfect to them. He was poor. He was uneducated. He was a drug addict. He didn't have a job. He was down there begging and crying and asking the white people to not kill him. To a Democrat, to a white Democrat, this is the perfect black man. So he has to be elevated. Look, not a few days ago, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden celebrated hip-hop music. They had a celebration of hip-hop.
Hip-hop culture is America's culture. It is a genre. It is music and melody and rhyme. And hip-hop is also an ethos.
A music genre that calls the black man the N-word, calls women the W word and the B word, talks about misogyny, shooting police, smoking dope, selling dope, fighting, killing, acting a fool. They celebrated this genre. Why? Because this is how they see Black America. They see us the same way they see George Floyd. And they have to make more of us.
So he's right about that. And the thing is that I remember once we did a video and I said, because what's his name? Morgan Freeman once said that he didn't need a Black History Day, Black History Month. Yeah, and I agree. I don't need a Black History Month. Yeah. But when you say that, you're either Uncle Tom or you're just being a racist for saying that. And I think Black History Month is American history.
It is American.
It's just American history. These are Americans we're talking about. But they don't want to do that. But they're okay with calling hip hop American culture.
That glorifies
the worst parts of being Black.
Right.
You know, the Black men calling Black women whores and Black women acting like whores.
And then calling themselves that.
Yeah. The horrible music, the drug dealing. It's just what they think of Black Americans, what they want to sell you as Black people.
Well, especially, particularly white, like he's saying, white liberals really love. Yeah. That's what they want Black people, specifically Black men, to be. And this is why we get really, uncomfortable. But I get a little bit upset when I hear Black men specifically be, victims. And to buy into it. And we need to get our reparations. And it just seems so pathetic to me. And I don't want the image of Black people in general being that way, right? Really, honestly, just Americans in general. But Black men specifically, I don't like that. Because like he's saying, that's what they want. They want you begging for that crumbs, all those little crumbs of reparations.
They dangle reparations.
Yeah, they're dangling in your face.
Reparations dangling in your face to keep you, you know what I mean? Because they know that Black people we're just an emotional group of people. Yeah. And if you say racism, they hear, white supremacy, words are triggering for Black people. And, white liberals are really good at keeping us boxed in and keeping us emotionally involved. And that's why it was so annoying to hear Kamala Harris call this America's music or whatever she wanted to call it. But she doesn't want to call Black history Americans' history.
Because everywhere they rule, John F. Kennedy stood in front of the Berlin Wall in the 60s and said, if you think that communism is great, let them come to Berlin. Well, if you think that the Democratic Party is great, let them come to Detroit. Let them come to Chicago. Let them come to St. Louis. Let them come to LA, Portland, Seattle, Memphis. Anywhere where they rule, you'll see George Floyd's all over the place. And they're proud of them. In Baltimore, Maryland, they spend $21,000 per child for every child up there inside the school district. Not one school is proficient in math, science, or reading. But they keep it going every year. Why? Because they're producing George Floyd. And George Floyd votes for the Democratic Party.
But why when most of us, you, me, I think all normal people look at George Floyd's life, you think this is a disaster. This guy never added anything. He took a lot in prison at least 8 times. I mean, his life was a tragedy at best. Why would you want more people like that?
Because he votes for the Democrat Party. And then he teaches his children to vote for the Democrat Party. And then these white Democrats can feel superior to him. Yeah. He can be controlled by them. Just like, think about an old slave plantation, talk back in the day. How they wanted their slaves to act. Subservient, obedient, ignorant, doing what he was told, not asking any questions, having a slave mind, being dependent on them. This is how they want Black men to be in America. This is how they want the whole Black community to be. This is why it started in the Civil Rights Movement when Martin Luther King Jr. in his I Have a Dream speech said, 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, the Negro is still not free.
Yes. Whenever I hear that, it makes me cringe because it's like, that's the beginning of, remember Black people. I'm a Black man, but remember, you're not free. So it's the mentality, the idea is to keep a lock on the I am not free mentality, and it's worked. So we hear Black people now saying they are not free.
And a lot of people believe that Martin Luther King, the only thing he really did was usher Black people into the Democratic Party.
Right.
And really, that is what he did. You know what I mean? I mean, after he died, really, every Black person was voting. That's why we got this 90% block of Black people, Black voters voting that way. And if they don't vote at all, they still think that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so the civil rights era, to me, needs to be revisited.
Yeah.
Because I think there was a lot of rhetoric that kind of killed us.
This whole like George Floyd thing and what he's saying is correct. It's to get votes for the Democratic Party. This is what they do.
Free. He said 5 times in that speech that we were not free. It turned the Declaration of Independence on its head, because in our Declaration of Independence it said that our freedom was an unalienable right given us by God. John Locke, in his second treatise of government, said that an unalienable right is a right given from God. It is irrevocable, non-transferable, and unsellable. The government cannot touch it. It supersedes law. It supersedes the Constitution. However, King said that we was coming to government and to the white man for our right to be free. Even at the end of the speech, he said, on some certain day, we'll be free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. He said in that speech, when will we be satisfied? He said, we will never be satisfied until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. That's a fancy way of saying never. And so black people heard that speech and said that we were not free here in America. And we make our children recite that speech every single year on King's birthday. And they say in that speech, the Negro is still not free. George Floyd was a slave in his mind. And the civil rights movement caused him to be a slave in his mind. And today they're still marching, 60 years later, telling black people, you're not free. Beg for reparations. Beg for affirmative action. Kill your children in the womb. Cut off your child. You castrate your children. Let drag queens come into school and shake their behinds in your children's faces. Run God out of the public square. And then they end up like George Floyd. But the one thing they do consistently is they vote for the Democratic Party, and the places where George Floyd's live, they stay in absolute power.
Draw God away.
Yeah.
And we've said this in so many videos before. The idea and the push is to push God and religion and that whole obedience part out of the way. Get God out of the way, and then we can just have our way with these people. Because when when you have a strong belief in God, you know what I mean? A real strong belief, not just that you think there's a God, or just a fleeting thought, I believe in God. No, I'm talking about a strong, trusting belief in God. You really will not waver from some things. And there's some things you will not waver from. And when you don't have God, this is my belief, when you do not have God in your life, you are susceptible and open to having these people creep in that are going to affect your life in the worst way possible.
But not only that, like when we make race your God. When you begin to let your race become your God, you are open. You're open to be manipulated.
Right.
Because the black community has a long lineage of being Christians.
Yes. Right.
Mostly Christian conservatives. And they have, most black people, even when they go to church, they have, if you look at the Democratic platform and everything that they vote for, abortion and, gay marriage, black people have abandoned all of that just so they can get some reparations.
Right.
Or get some freedom that they think they don't have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I can't vote for that. So this isn't, to me, it's not about politics.
Yeah.
But I can't vote
Yeah.
for something that, to me, spits in the eye of God.
That's a pretty dark explanation. So you're saying that the Democratic Party as an organization intentionally degrades black people to keep them compliant and obedient.
Oh yes, in my book Crime Inc., I talk about one of the main things they do, like the mafia and organized crime. They humiliate black people. They demoralize them. It's a Marxist construct. They demoralize their people. They beat them down. They tell them that they're victims. Well, it was Martin Luther King Jr. that said, they tell you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, how can you pull yourself up by your bootstraps when you're bootless? He told us we were bootless. You have black preachers, and you've heard, about my iron triangle, the black preacher, the black politician, the black civil rights worker. They go into the black community. Consistently, you're a victim. You're oppressed. The country hates you. Well, see, I look at them and I say, I'm a black man, but I cannot be oppressed. You know why? Because I'm a child of God. I'm an heir of Jesus Christ. I cannot be a victim. Why? Because I'm an heir of Jesus Christ. I'm a child of God. I cannot be a victim. See, they tell these people to go against their religion and their basic ideology, because most black men say they're Christians, right? But then they walk around saying, I'm oppressed. I'm a victim. I'm afraid. 365 times in our Bible, they tell us to fear not. Yet they walk around saying they're afraid in the United States of America. LeBron James said he's afraid. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar says he's afraid. Kaepernick said he's afraid. Well, I'm a black man in America, and I'm not afraid of a damn thing.
That was what I was saying. I think like Martin Luther King, it's interesting to me. Like I never thought about that, but it is interesting to me that a man who was a pastor, a real pastor, not like not like the other one, the one that's always, what's his name, the one with the perm.
Oh, Sharpton.
Al Sharpton, the fake pastor. Martin Luther King was supposed to be a real pastor. You know what I mean? And for him to know that in the Bible it says that that you are free,
but preach another way,
right? But then tell us that we aren't.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It makes you think, like what was he up to? Like he had to be working with the party in a lot of ways that maybe we don't understand that he was doing that. You know what I mean? Because his personal life wasn't that good. Yeah, the things he was doing in his personal life, but I just that's what I mean. It's just like if you are free. Black people were moving forward. We were getting a lot done. And then here comes Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement and everybody else after the Black Panthers, even Malcolm X and all those. They changed the conversation. And like they said, we became a trying race to a crying race.
I don't ask for permission in my own house. America is my home. So as they walk around here crying, talking about, I'm frightened, I'm afraid, I can't make it, please help me, I tell them they stink in my nostrils. They're an affront to God. The flip side of white male intimidation during the civil rights was also black male cowardice. They laid down and let them beat them, slap them around, rape their wives and their children. Well, no, not me, never me. I'm a free man. I live in the United States of America. They say it's an honor to be, that there's white supremacy and that white people have some type of privilege. Well, as I said before, it is a privilege to be white. But it's also a privilege to be black, and it's a privilege to be an American, and it's really a privilege to be a Christian in the United States of America, the greatest country on the face of this earth. And they're not going to make a George Floyd out of me. I stand up strong. I look them in the eye, and I say, I'm a free man. My freedom comes from God. It's an unalienable right given to me by him. You cannot touch it, and if you try it, I got two things that'll get you off of me, Jesus and my 38. Come try me out.
So,
I mean, man, that man said everything I ever thought in one speech.
This guy, that's so funny. Man, good for him.
I mean, yeah.
Because he's really, talking like this is not, him even saying the word Jesus Christ.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't say that stuff.
You can say you're Muslim. You can talk about the Quran. You can talk about being Jewish. But you cannot be a Christian anymore. It's really not in this weird, country. You know what I mean? And when this used to be a real Christian country.
It's so weird.
Now you can't do it. But you can talk about being a Muslim. You can talk about all this other stuff. But I mean, this guy literally just said everything I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So the Democratic Party used BLM as a domestic militia in the last presidential cycle, 2020, to defeat Donald Trump. Do you expect something like that to happen again?
Well, you see how they use the same tactics as Iran. Iran has Hezbollah and Hamas as their militias. And the Democratic Party uses BLM and Antifa as theirs, throwing the rock and hiding the hand. Of course they're going to do it. They've always done it. Even at the beginning, they used the Ku Klux Klan for the military reign. Now they're using BLM, they're using Antifa, they're using NAACP, and they're their suicide bombers. They're their shock troops. They're their brown shirts. They're their street soldiers. And they're going to go out there, and I guarantee you, Tucker, they're going to look over all the black-on-black violence. They're going to look over all the black men killing black men. They're going to look over all the snatching grabs and all the burning and all the fighting and looting and acting a fool. And they're going to find one crazy white cop that's going to do something to some crazy black man, and then they're going to try to burn this country down for it. That's their plan. That's their template. I hope America's ready for it because it's coming. And it always works for them. It always works because the press and everybody's just waiting. Oh, they're on the starting line just waiting for it. And as soon as they find that golden kill, watch them go crazy with it. BLM is going to start getting their money from the Democrat Party because that's who they get it from. The same way that Hamas gets their money from Iran. BLM gets their money from the Democrat Party. And BLM does not stand for Black Lives Matter. It stands for burn, loot, and murder. And that's what we should call them from now on.
He said burn, loot, and murder. you guys, I cannot tell you how many comments we get from black people. And I hate this part of saying this, but mostly black men that are saying that, you know, they call us mammies or whatever they call us. And they'll say, you guys don't see that you're being oppressed. You don't see that you're not free. You need to see the white people are keeping you down, ladies. You need to get it together and stop being some mammies. People say to us all the time. I'm like, what are you why do you think white people are superior to you?
Right.
What is wrong with you? Well, I do not think that white people have some special privileged power that I just don't have.
I mean, I just feel like, why do you feel like white people have to like you?
Why?
So much? Why do you feel like white people have to do what you say so you can be some sort of free? What are you looking for? I guess that's my question.
What are you looking for? Yeah.
What is happening in your life that you feel that you aren't getting? What are you looking to happen?
Yeah.
Because like you said about Martin Luther King, that it's sort of what he was saying is a sort of a utopia.
Yeah.
He knows it's never going to happen.
Right.
And that's the problem with the utopia idea, is that the idea of it, it may sound good. And again, I don't even know what a utopia looks like. Everybody's utopia looks different.
Yeah, right.
That's why there is one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Human nature will always get in the way of that. If you think that you're going to get all white people to not be racist, you're crazy.
Yeah, what's the
I don't know.
What's the end game with this? What's the end game with this?
Racism is never going away.
It's there. Racism is real. It happens.
Black people are just as racist. You are not going to have a bunch of black people who are all. There's never going to be this kumbaya moment because human nature always gets in the way.
You're right. And now black people are allowed to just be racist outwardly. That's accepted now.
We are becoming everything we hated about white people mid-century.
Yeah.
We are becoming just like them.
Right.
That group of white people. That's everything you hated about them. We are now becoming. We're mean. We're we call people racist for no reason. We are paranoid because I believe a lot of white people were paranoid, and that's the reason why they treated us like that. They were afraid of what could happen. You know what I mean? Because you know why? Because they were giving information that wasn't helping them. Rhetoric. Yeah. And now we're getting that same rhetoric. It's just that's turning us into that.
Yeah, we're becoming the hate group. But he's right when he's saying that it's not going to take much for black people.
And that's what I say. Like, tell the truth. I mean, there are going to be people who are just stubborn. They don't want to. They don't want to change. Yeah. They don't want to change their thinking. Right. They want to stay stuck on stupid, and then to spend their whole life hating a ghost. Yeah. That doesn't really exist. You know what I mean? And I pray for people that just stay there, because I know you're in your own mental prison. Yeah. That you can't just get out. You can't get anything done when you're that stubborn. You know what I mean?
It's a mental shackle. It's like Bob Marley emancipate yourself from mental slavery. That none but ourselves can free our mind. Look, if someone has you in physical shackles, it's almost easier to get out of that than its mental ones. And I think that's what's happening right now, is that there is a mental lock on black people that has been being perpetuated for years. To the point now where we still are saying silly stuff like we are not free. It is the weirdest, oddest thing.
People, when we talk about not being free, it's like we start going back so many decades. Yeah. It's just like, but we don't live in 1965 anymore. Yeah. We don't live in 1865 anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just like black people are getting jobs based on being black. Yeah. I mean, like I said, Joe Biden hired Kamala Harris.
And openly said.
To Ketanji Brown Jackson. His press secretary, all because they were black women, and he said he was going to hire them because they're black women. Like he gave these three women positions based on race and race alone. That's dangerous. Yeah, I mean that's not. I mean, what do you mean by that? It's just like that. I don't. So what else do you want?
What's the other?
What else do we want? What is it? You want to not go to jail? Well, that happened because now they're not arresting people anymore. Look at Chicago; they're not even arresting people anymore. They're just tearing that state, that city up. You know what I mean? What else do you want? I don't know. I mean, it just seems like everything that the only thing you haven't gotten is reparations.
And I'm going to tell you that any other time the government has tried to help black people, it's never worked out beautifully for us. So the idea that you're going to be okay with reparations, and you're just gonna take that government money and just think that that's all they have in mind. Like, come on, you know what I mean? You gotta be smarter than that. Just take any kind of, and they're just dangling the carrot. It's not happening. They're just gonna dangle the carrot, you know, and then you're gonna keep talking about reparations. It's gonna keep happening, and then it's never gonna happen. And then you're still gonna, and then even if you get it, it's still gonna be something. It'll never be. When is it gonna be enough? It's never gonna be enough.
No, I pray just people wake up a little bit.
Me too.
You know what I mean? Just like wake up, get out of the fog.
Yeah.
Because you are being indoctrinated to see yourself as a victim.
Right.
And one day you're going to wake up and realize this country's going to be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to say, oh man, maybe we shouldn't have did this.
Right.
Or maybe we should have just moved on.
Right.
Maybe we should move. You know, I mean, we're going to destroy this great country if we don't get over ourselves.
Right.
Because I don't think we want. I don't think we want equal rights anymore. I think we want supremacy. Mm-hmm. I think we want black supremacy.
Yeah.
And I'm not with that. I wasn't with it with white people, and I'm not going to be with it with us.
No.
We should have learned our lesson from the system that came before us, that it's not good when you try to make a race, you know, more elevated than another race. When, you know what I mean? It doesn't work.
Right.
It makes really bad, it makes for a really bad country.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And we had to get over that.
Right.
And I felt like we were, and now it just seems like now black people are trying to be the supremacists.
Yeah.
And
no accountability,
and then you think these white people
Yeah.
aren't going to say, "Hey, I don't think so."
We gotta start taking,
You know?
we gotta start taking accountability to the community. You know, like we're not doing the right things. Like all these shootings that you're saying that's happening with the with like white cops, and then they kill the black people, and people get so upset. I always feel like, you know, people are afraid to talk about the preventative measures that could have happened with that situation. Mm-hmm. So the preventative measure with pretty much all these cases is that there was a crime being done, which is why they were presented with the police officer in the first place. So let's just say that one of the police officers, or all of them, were just racist white police officers. Let's just go with what you're thinking, right? Let's just say that. Well, okay. Then if you think there's a bunch of racist white police officers out there, you know, lurking around the streets, hunting down black people, then let's not do crimes. How about we not do crimes since you think everybody's racist? Every white cop in the world is racist. How about we just don't do the crime? That way we won't be presented with the police officer at all. But let's know what you think about all of this. I'm sure that we're going to be called victim blamers on this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care about that.
I know,
that's stupid. But it's just the point is that, you know, when you think, you know, it's good sometimes to hear a different perspective.
Yeah, right.
I think that we become like a monolith. Like black people, like people think that we, and you know, it's true because we vote one way. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But they think we all think the same.
Mm-hmm. We don't.
And we don't.
Clearly.
We just don't. You know what I mean? And I think it's important that we don't.
Yes.
Black people, they stick together. Not really. Not if we don't think the same.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stick together with somebody who just sounds completely stupid.
Right.
And doesn't make any sense at all, and doesn't have anything to back up, you know, anything they're saying. I'm not gonna go along to get along just because you're black and I'm black. That makes sense. I don't do it because I'm a woman. I don't do it because you know I'm black or anything.
Yeah.
You have to stand up for what you believe in, what's truth in your life. And what you're actually seeing with your eyes and hearing with your ears. You don't just go along with people who are just bitter and victims and don't want to move forward and stuck on stupid. You can't just do that.
Let us know what you think. Leave some comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel if you have not. And we will see you guys in the next video. Bye.